Hey allies, Skull and Bones is officially out, so let's have a look at some gameplay and some performance on the ROG Ally with both AMD's motion fluid frames as well as stock standard, and also another way to play that may be a lot more beneficial all round, especially as it looks absolutely awesome. First off, quick look at AMD's motion fluid frames as we're swinging around here. I haven't managed to get this game absolutely perfect to my liking locally, unfortunately. This has somewhat of a performance issue across the board on lower level devices, so the best settings that I've got without it looking absolutely horrendous is AMD's FSR2 quality with medium preset, VSync on, and ambient occlusion off, motion blur and depth of field off at 900p. Going down to 720 even with no native FSR doesn't look great and doesn't perform any better, so you're better off with 900p with FSR2 on quality. Now with AMD's motion fluid frames, we do get a little bit better frame rate. It does introduce a minor amount of input latency, and it doesn't always work all the time. Now, if you're changing TDPs or changing settings on Skull and Bones, there does seem to be an issue where it loses the controller input, so you need to switch back to desktop and then open it back up again for it to detect the controller input properly. Without AMD's motion fluid frames, it does feel just about the same. We don't get any of that extra smoothness when it's available. Now around town we do only get 30 to 40 frames per second locally, but when we are out on the sea, especially when there's not a huge amount going on, we do get closer to 50 to 60 frames per second, and it does look pretty good. In the battles, it is all about just trying to sink the ships and then either getting the bonus loot by trying the crew boarding or just by blowing the ships up. Now there is a lot of this, so I can see why they didn't go with a mini game or full crew boarding, because the amount of ships that you need to take down, it would be a very long mission, even just for some of the basic ones. Now when we're really up close and personal, it's around 40 to 50 frames per second, but if we go and flip that AMD motion fluid frames back on, we sit close to that 120 range and things just feel a lot smoother, especially if you want to put that 120Hz mode on the ROG Ally. This is all at the 25 watt battery performance, so if you did want to eke out a little bit more, then you could put it onto the 30 watts, obviously when you're on power, but this is definitely not a game that you can play at any lower TDP, unfortunately. So with the 25 watt, I was only just about able to get an hour's worth of gameplay, and it was satisfactory on the performance side. And also the look side, to be honest, especially with AMD's motion fluid frames, although sometimes it doesn't obviously kick in and it will revert to that 30 to 40 frames per second. I did find it worth it for the most part. Hopefully we'll get the official version of that soon, but if you want to sideload it, I'll leave a link for the guide of that in the description below. Now this was actually added to GeForce NOW this week, so if you do have GeForce NOW, we can run this at 1080p with TAA or either native or NVIDIA DLSS on quality mode, ultra high settings overall, and 10 watts TDP. And now we'll get 100 plus frames per second. Now there does seem to be an issue with the ROG Ally overlay, as well as using the Radeon overlay while streaming. This really caused me some issues with stutter and some other bits and pieces, but once I turned that overlay off, it was really smooth. And if I put the GeForce NOW overlay on, or the Ubisoft FPS counter, you'll see that now when we're out and about, we're getting 120 frames per second plus. I'm not sure why the stream got capped at 60 frames per second a lot of the time while I was in game, especially as the Ally has that 120Hz screen. But when it was working, you do get that buttery smooth image. Obviously you could cap it at 60 FPS and you wouldn't have an issue either, as it would be absolutely rock solid. What I will say though is this is an absolutely gorgeous game. The gameplay can be a little bit repetitive, but it does look absolutely gorgeous, especially in those daylight times with all the different islands and other bits and pieces going on. Let us know in the comments below if you can be diving into this one, and if you want more info on GeForce NOW, I'll leave a description to that below. This is the ultimate tier, which is the more expensive version, around £18 a month, or you can get the premier version for around £10 a month. And if you want to try it out for free, the free tier is back, but you may have to queue to give it a go. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.